Ahoy there, mateys! Welcome aboard the Riff, Raff podcast. We are the pirates of the Spicy waters. Come along with us and hoist the sail. We're navigating life through story and tale. We'll help you embrace the way you're wired, sharing laughs and lessons to get you inspired. If you join us, we will help you see there are a lot of ways to sail the Spicy sea.
I mean, I feel bad. We're starting without laughing. Like, are we letting the team down?
But like we were laughing, but then the last time too much laughing was
valid.
So,
but now the witches are in charge. So
we went a tighter ship.
Yeah, wizards are not on the ship today. No, that's kidding. I'm sorry. That was disrespectful. If you're listening versus looking, I may have given a 2-gun salute.
Double-barreled.
Whoopsie. Yes, so it's just the witches today. I was going to say wenches, but wenches is gender identifying. So I have my little ADHD brain was doing a whole pinball. Like, what's an alternative? What would be respectful? But in an honest curiosity way. And then, of course, the amazing Sydney Elaine Butler is like, well, I'm a witch. So, So it's the witches today.
Mm-hmm.
The witches. Okay. So we do have a topic. Happy Autism Awareness Day. I have strong feelings about the language. And then that's used, like awareness versus acceptance versus all of this. Feels a little tokeny. And then I said to Sydney, happy being autistic day. And your response was?
Yes, I'm quite aware that I want to say.
It's like, and that's kind of how I feel people feel, she says with a grimace.
I feel like you're not aware and then you're like hyper aware. Like you go time where you I talked about another episode, like my sensory overload, I would call them gross attacks, right? So I was aware that there was something, I was perceiving the world differently than people around me. Again, but like you were just mentioning about language is so complex and it's to help identify and categorize things, but when does it
become dangerous?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So one of we had our third Nimble ND Connect on Monday, and Sydney did an awesome job.
After I got my voice back, after not coughing.
Some like selective mutism situation. I don't know what was happening. But we just pivoted and it worked out. And what we discovered is the importance of the format that we do for Nimble ND is the team picks a topic based on the previous month's conversations and what comes up and questions that get asked. So we review the transcript from the meeting summary from it. Everybody's aware that we're not recording audio, we're not recording video, but we do have something running in the background because we don't want to miss what people want to talk about. So in the previous session, it had been you and Maddie running the session. Ish. It
was more Maddie running this. I was like,
so that's when we discovered Maddie's superpowers are not executive function, which they will laugh and agree because they say the same thing. And the topic led into, it seemed to really ping people around boundaries.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So that's why we did this month. And I found it extremely intriguing because I don't know if I'm good at boundaries or not. But from an autism lens, sorry, I'm forming like 6 thoughts at once. Welcome to my brain on ADHD first thing in the morning. I also don't drink coffee first thing in the morning, so I am I know. I have what looks like a cup of coffee, but is actually decaf. because I try
But
not
it's
to
telling
drink
you to
caffeine.
seize the day, so that's why you have 6 ideas.
Right? That's why I'm so stimulated. I'm discovering more and more that the ADHD brain does not function like other people. It just doesn't. So, and I'm in no way to be disrespectful. I think there needs to be more ADHD awareness, because if you work with somebody who's a wingnut like me, whose executive function can be a little sketchola,
It's either on the ball or what's that again?
I just kicked the shit out of the ball. Like the ball just
Mhm.
dribbled off the edge. So with that boundaries thing, we ended up having the Nimble ND Connect. We went into boundaries, and Sydney introduced some really cool topics, like just ways of looking at boundaries. And one of them was no is a complete sentence. But one that provoked some conversation and big feelings was no means no.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if we can tie that into autism awareness. And somebody on the event, I never thought about it this way, they said, I'm trying to conserve my energy because it's about to be like autism palooza for the month of April. And I'm about to get a lot of attention being active in the autism community and whatever. So when we look at autism acceptance and what we may or may not understand about autism, when it comes to boundaries, because I feel like they get violated a lot.
Yes.
Okay. Would you be comfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah, hit it.
Boundaries for anyone is complex, and I think because like it's kind of another layer of social norms, and I think with that, because of how people interact with each other and what is overstepping, and that's kind of confusing, and even like not knowing what other people are overstepping. And for me personally, I don't know if it's an autism thing, but I think it's also important to recognize that we're all unique, you know? And so it's like, is that a Sydney thing? Is it an autism thing? Is it a trauma thing? Because I also have, which I've seen research that trauma and autism are really closely linked. And so I'm like, oh, cool, I run the jackpot. But in all seriousness,
When it comes to boundaries, sorry, or just in
yeah,
general?
in general, but when it comes to boundaries, because I think not understanding what a clear boundary is and how, I think there's also like some definition of what a boundary is, but sometimes it's like in the Nimble Connect, we saw that there's room for interpretation and ways that like the no means no, no is a full sentence, and not understanding the power of the words and the actions that are in place. And so I think like when I was a teenager, I like boundaries who like, and for me, I would overstep with other people and other people would overstep with me, right? And so that was really difficult, and I've now been with the same therapist. I'm happy to admit this, with the same therapist for 8 years since I had a really bad traumatic incident, and like once a year or more than once a year. But I'm always like, she sends me a new boundary worksheet. She's like, okay, what boundaries do you really want to focus on this year? What does that look like in you?
Oh,
because which is like, what boundaries are you proud of that you accomplished last year? You know, making me reflect on that. What boundaries do you want to move forward? And so that's been crucial for me understanding how I'm showing up and interacting with the people around me.
Okay, I'm having so many thoughts right now. This is the challenge with my brain, is that we're very fortunate we skipped over the introduction part and straight into the chitty chat because we know each other. So by the way, welcome to Across the Desk.
On that note.
On that note, and the Riff Raff podcast, maybe we'll do some switcheroony on this. Normally
Like
we are.
Honestly,
this whole week has just been foobarred. So normally there's 4 of us. Normally there's Maddie Dever, who is currently speaking at the ICANN conference in Niagara Falls. So we were lucky to have Maddie in town on Tuesday to end Employment Works and Connect and things like that. And then we also have Paul Coleman, who's known as the Arctic LARPer. True story. Paul and I were at an event at Sheridan a week ago now. And one of the neat activities for service providers and employers that were at the event was they would do a custom dog tag. So Paul went off to get his dog tag done, and he comes back and he shows it to me, and he got it inscribed Arctic LARPer. So it's official now.
He's wearing the badge with honor.
He's wearing the badge. Yes. So then I'm Elizabeth Plouffe. I'm the founder of Spiro Canada, and I started the Across the Desk podcast a few gray hairs ago. And I'm fortunate to work with this amazing team. And then to my right, so the witch's name is Tia Dalma.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's not Sydney's name, but now I feel like we might need to work Tia into the conversation somehow. So tell me about you, Sydney.
So hello, I am Sydney Elaine Butler, and I am autistic. I am a business owner. I am part of the team at Sparrow, and
Nimble.
And Nimble. Yeah, if we're just adding other things. There's so much happening. And I'm trying to help others find their voice. I think a lot of people actually come to me that are racialized women, and they're like, thank you for doing the work you do. And that
Absolutely
means so much, because I know it, like, representation really matters, and I'm trying to, if I can just be a little bit of representation, and I'm trying to get other people in the room that are more racialized than I am, more, and other, but using finding my voice and helping others find their voice and find their passions in this world. And life's hard, but finding things that light us up. And so and trying to make the workplace, and going to organizations and workplaces to really help bridge those gaps. And I have a background in human resources, and really trying to bridge the gap between, policies and procedure and actually implementing and actually fostering inclusion on a day-to-day basis.
So for those of you that are listening, just for context, I'm about as white as you can get. I am 90% Northern European, confirmed by the fact that my parents are from England, and 500 years of my family being in England. My parents decided to be adventurous, so I'm a first-generation Canadian. About as pale as you can get. Like, I don't know if you could get whiter. You probably could.
Well, I you want to hear something? So my mom is Black, my dad is white, I am biracial. But it's, of course, it's Elizabeth you keep speaking of. He was just like, and he's like, oh, I feel better. She's pastrier than me. He said that.
Welcome. You're welcome, Sydney's dad. That's what I'm here for.
Because he's pretty translucent himself.
Translucent.
His words, not mine.
I should smoke to neutralize the blue. So yeah, we just got back from Mexico in February. I have to tan for 6 weeks before we go. Otherwise, the second I step into a semi-tropical warm climate, it's like, ooh, sun. And it's like putting me in a microwave. So one of the reasons we're providing that context is because within these conversations, there's certain privileges and societal challenge that come into play. Mm-hmm. So my son is autistic, dyslexic, and ADHD. I'm ADHD. My husband's dyslexic. My daughter's just going through to be tested for ADHD. So we are like a little neurodivergent melting pot. And one of the things we talk about as a team very frequently is the concept of being with, not for.
Mhm.
So the reason that we share these things pretty much each podcast is so that you know we're coming at this with lived experience and professional experience. But also, I recognize my white privilege. I recognize that I go through the world differently as a neurodivergent woman, but it's an invisible difference. So to society, who can sometimes, for the most part, unfortunately, make life easier for white folk. I mean, boobs get in the way. I will tell you that white woman has some stuff attached to it, but I don't go through the world the same as Sydney does, or Maddie, who is in a motorized wheelchair and is also neurodivergent, and Paul, who goes through the world also neurodivergent. So we want to make clear on that perception, if you're listening, that when Sydney talks about racialized communities, marginalized communities in that capacity, your intersectionality is quite high.
Yes, and it's
Way to go for checking all the boxes.
I'm also hyper aware of that, and I did a session for a couple organizations on intersectionality in the workplace, and it was also interesting to see. I think since starting my own business, I became even more aware of my intersectional identities and how I'm showing up, and recognizing I have privileges, and recognizing my oppressions, and recognizing and helping other people recognize that we all have privileges and oppressions, and recognizing how that makes us, how we see ourselves in the world, and how the world might perceive us.
So, and that's one of the challenges, I think. I really appreciate you sharing that view. One of the things at a recent event, and I'm going to say this, and it's not meant in any, take it how you're going to take it, because it needs to be said. So Paul and I do a lot of events together, a lot, as part of an awesome program that we are a part of with the Canadian Association of Mold Makers. One of the things I'm very passionate about is neurodivergence in trades. And that's because my husband is a triple ticketed tradesperson and my son is a first-year apprentice. Over 30% of apprentices or people in the workforce in trades are neurodivergent in some capacity. But we go back to autism for the most part. I can't even say that concretely, but autism is considered on some levels an invisible disability. And that's where the month of autism awareness, I think, shines, in that, to Sydney's point before, that we all show up differently. So being autistic impacts individuals very differently, literally from person to person. You are never going to find two folk that it impacts the same, because it comes with sensory issues potentially. It could come with mental health issues. It could come with co-diagnosis of a learning difference. There's a high percentage of a learning difference being co-diagnosed with somebody who's on the spectrum. It can come with coincidental physical limitations, right? So both Maddie and Sydney deal with some physical limitations that can affect their day-to-day. And I think that's what gets forgotten when we talk about autism, that intersectionality of what else is going on. One of the biggest ones for me that just bugs the shit out of me is the perception, and I've heard this, the board for Socially ASD, soon to be Nimble ND, are all autistic, and have said when they disclose or share with somebody that they're autistic, you can see a visible shift sometimes, especially if that person doesn't understand, what that label means. And I'm working with somebody right now who's volunteering with Nimble ND and Socially ASD. And I just saw this term, a late bloomer, for understanding their neurodivergence. And they have been petrified to disclose that they're autistic. Petrified. They don't know how to navigate it. They don't know who to share it with. They don't know when to share it. We spend a lot of time talking her through, we being me, we talk it through about, okay, what is to your point about oversharing or not sharing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know where it's safe to share that she's neurodivergent because the perceptions are so all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And people truly don't understand what being autistic means or what that representation means. Our team, folks, is an entire team of successful entrepreneurs. I mean, success is relative, but each of us run our own business, have families, part of families, like whatever it is. I wonder if that's where like the Autism Awareness Month falls down.
I think that's why, like, it's like either Autism Awareness Month, or now people are also saying Autism Acceptance Month.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
And I think there's still so much to learn, and there's still so much bias that we have to climb through on a day-to-day basis
Mm-hmm.
that it gets muddled. Or I think people still think autism looks one way when it doesn't.
Ooh.
And
Sorry.
I think like media informs so much of how we understand our world around us. And the perception that you usually see in media is a very two-dimensional depiction of autism.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the confusion and the not understanding, but they feel like they understand, but like, what do you mean that TV character, like The Good Doctor, that show's been on for years and it's a good, and that
He's
must
not
be
even autistic, folks, by the way.
yeah. And so, or Atypical that was on Netflix, all these different things. And it's like, that's a caricature of autism, or and I wish Maddie's been a consultant on some TV shows about autistic characters, which is super cool, to make them more three-dimensional and more what that actually looks like. And so I think people think they know what autism is, and I think they don't understand how, again, the different intersectional identities that someone has impacts like the care or the support you're able to get with being autistic. It's like, did your family and yourself have the resources to navigate through that, or did you not have the resources to navigate through that? Have you been masking for so long because you didn't have the resources and because you didn't know, you just subconsciously masking. Like I was masking for the longest time, and I would still have challenges, but in other aspects, I would be masking and be able to push through, for lack of a better word.
But that's a good term, because what ends up happening is people do push through. Then they push through and they end up in burnout, or they end up in, I think people use the term meltdown too easily.
Yes.
And it's confining, right? Because when most folks hear the term meltdown, what they perceive is some kid losing their shit on the grocery store floor, flailing and whatever. Well, folks, let me tell you, having experienced a couple of meltdowns, I had a situation, came home, had not managed my energy effectively, had not prepared myself for the level of stimulus that day, and was recovering from a surgery. And I walked in the house, walked up to my husband, put my head on his chest, and just started bawling. And that's not me. Like, I am a crier. My team will tell you I get a little weepy. But a full on like body, whatever, that was a meltdown for me. Other folks can't, like Sydney, have you had? Yeah. And you can share or not share?
Yeah. So for me, meltdowns are very complex. And I feel like meltdowns in general are complex. And I feel like I'm also the eldest daughter, which is a huge part of my identity. In a biracial family. And second generation Canadian, and just understanding that, and I think just society is like, you have to keep, again, the pushing through. And I would have moments, and I was like, I always felt like I had to take care of myself and those around me. And so again, but then, and in other relationships too, I was always the one. I was like, I feel like I was putting 150% in, and other people weren't putting
pouring
the energy
in versus inviting somebody in.
And now in my relationship with my Gordon, my healthy like I one time, I have a story. So one time we were going to see a musical downtown Toronto, and sometimes, like, I know my way around Toronto, but sometimes I get super overwhelmed and I just like forget everything. I'll go blank. And we had like half an hour till we had to get to the theater, but I'm like, you have to be here at this time. I like things scheduled. And so in my mind, we were already behind schedule, even though we weren't. You know? And I was like, because I want to be at the theater at this time, even though we still have we have a buffer, but I want to be at the theater at this time. And he's like, we have time. What time is it? He's like, again, asking me, confirming what time the thing starts. And he's like, yes, we have time. And I literally went non-speaking. Sometimes it happens when I'm super overwhelmed. I go non-speaking. Hard to believe, I know, because I always talk a lot, but sometimes I go non-speaking.
I can get that. Yeah.
And then I feel like I spiral even more, because then I feel guilty for feeling bad. And it's just a whole like, and then he's just like, oh no, and then he's like, he took my hand. He's like, we're almost there, like, and just like showed me on his phone. He's like, this is how long it's gonna take to get. We have 5 more minutes. We're almost there. It's okay. Yeah. And it's so interesting to see how it still impacts me and how meltdowns show up. And I feel like sometimes I have a meltdown for having a meltdown. Because
society's great.
The shame, and it's like, because again, that perception that you were talking about of a meltdown, like, I know that's not the case. I know that I'm going to experience meltdowns. But I feel like also when I have a meltdown, sometimes I feel like my inner child comes out when I have a meltdown. And it's just like, because there was an incident when I was a kid around time management and things like that with one of my parents, and that caused great stress and caused me great pain. And so I feel like now when that happens again, like, but I'm supposed to be better, and like, no one's exactly, and then we're behind, and la la la.
And internal dialogue.
I have a lot of internal dialogue, and then I have trouble communicating that to someone else. It's just like, because I always feel like I have to figure everything out myself. So I'm like, okay, then the time, and then, but I'm like, in a relationship, and in a healthy relationship, because I want a healthy relationship, because I've had non-healthy relationships. I have examples of unhealthy relationships in my life. But that's I kind of revert back to what I'm used to. And so it's hard to communicate when you're feeling that overwhelmed, and that I'm like, and then I'm like, why don't you understand that I'm upset? Or why don't you? But then I'm like, I really am not communicating. And so sometimes now I feel sometimes with that happens too. I want to communicate via text, and then write it down. And so my partner's like, hey, just write it down, but and show it to me, text it to me. Sometimes we're having a phone call or a video call. He's like, send me a message of how you're feeling, or when you have a moment, and you can allow. And he also says, take the time to melt. He gives you the permission to have that melt.
Aww.
And he's like, I know you're trying your best. You're doing the best you can with what you have in this moment. And so that's really changed my perception of how my meltdowns are showing up, and how to allow myself to melt, but also have tools in place to still communicate effectively to him and to other people if I'm in that situation.
What's the name of the snowman in Frozen?
Olaf.
Thank you. So we can
So I
call
love
it Olaf.
Frozen.
I love Frozen. It's fine. I have
I
a
was like,
whole case for perspective.
I have a
whole
Elsa
gift
tiara.
card. Should we wear them on our trip?
Should we?
Ooh. So we're going on a trip. Okay, so we'll do that in a second. So could it be called, and not to make fun of it, but adults need the conversation. They need the tools and they need the words to safely let people know within their circle what's going on. So as Sydney very kindly shared, the meltdown progresses to the point where your resources start to disappear, where that's handling stimulus, where that's loss of language, where that's literally devolving into panic, because now there's this whole, I think that's what folks miss, is that there's this whole inner dialogue going on that is fueled by
quiet out there to the person that you're dealing with, but your brain is so loud. You're like, what do you mean?
It's like monkeys on crack at a rave. I hear you. But I think that's, you've set up those boundaries with your Gordon to be able to say what you need in the moment when, like, so they recognize what's happening, and you've developed a safety net, if you will, which is going to help, I think, to go towards the habit of how we interpret meltdowns, right? Once we achieve some form of psychological safety with somebody else, then we don't go to those habits as much anymore. Those habits are a protective measure.
And I think also, like, the first time I had a meltdown, and it's being able to learn and willing to learn on both sides, right? It's like,
huge.
And because the first time it happened, he's like, because he has his own struggles as well, so he's like, what is happening? Like, you're like, and is because I also have complex PTSD. He's like, is this a PTSD thing? Is it a, what is it? Like, he's just like, all the just like wanting to help.
It could just be Sydney's losing it.
Oh, it's like, is Sydney just being Sydney and having a moment? And it's just, again, willing to sit in that uncomfortability. It's like it's like at my core, I know he wants to help me, and at my core, I want to be helped, right? But so it's like, how can those two come together? And
it's time.
And even recognizing that, I think also I recognize that I might not do everything perfectly when I have a meltdown, and he might not do everything perfectly, right? But just having that space to allow each other to be our authentic selves in that moment, and always, is so vital and beautiful, frankly. And
it's a boundary you set.
I had one in front of his family once, and like, oh, so now you know how to deal with autism. That's pretty cool, Gordon. And he's just like, no, I just know how to deal with Sydney. Because again, that misconception, of what autism, and like, so people, they mean well, it's, and because again, that education piece and that awareness piece and that acceptance piece, it's all connected, right? So he lives like no family. He's like, I don't know nothing about autism. I just know how it's Sydney.
Specialist in. And I was a specialist. My son was diagnosed at 7, and I'm not really a joiner. Just for context. Like I was, Sydney and I joke about this because we were both in Girl Guides, and I was asked to leave Girl Guides. And then I went back and I was a leader for 5 years. So I love that organization. So in no way am I disrespecting. If you want to get your girls into something that's, it's
girls need guides. That's the
they do.
No, that's the ad they have now.
Right, but I just got the double play on words.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little slow. So
son's diagnosed at 7.
What's that?
It took me a while too to get the play on words.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, but I've been in the organization for like 30 years. You think I would know?
Anyway,
so Thomas gets diagnosed, And of course, this was 2005, right? So we're on the cusp of the internet, and there's not a lot of places to go to get information. So I knew exactly jack and squat about autism, what it meant, how it impacted my kid. I knew it wasn't great at the time because, of course, there was so much unknown that you've got to take the word of the professional. So I was very lucky that when Thomas was diagnosed, and it took 5 years to get him diagnosed, by the way, which is good because obviously it doesn't impact him the same way it impacts other folks. But it also left us in this sort of nebulous nowhere of, okay, my kid's quirky and got some shit going on. And, you know, I didn't know how to get him what he needed. I didn't know what supports he needed because we didn't know what was happening. I know there's a lot of debate around labels, but I got to tell you, folks, in our case, with my autistic kid, the labels were helpful. So he's 7. I'm trying to figure this kid out because we knew something else was going on. And it was, like Sydney said at the beginning, what is my son as an autistic? What is my son as having ADHD? And what is my son just because sometimes he's a little turd? Like, you know,
just because of genetics. Even though
yes.
it is genetic, but like, what is just, yeah.
Oh, my daughter is carbon copy of me. We walk into any space and literally everybody stops and goes, like, there's no doubt she's my kid. She's almost the same height, same everything. My son, however, is like almost 6 feet tall with ginger hair and, you know, a little different. But trying to navigate systems for him and trying to set boundaries on what other people, how they engaged with him. Because what we ran into a lot was the assumption of deficit. And we ran into a lot was the assumption of helplessness and all these other things. And I had to put the brakes on that fast because no, like, you're not creating boundaries because of your fears or your misinformation or whatever's going on with you. You're going to look at my kid. You're going to test him a bit. You're going to, like, we've talked about the difference between push and force. You're going to push him because we do need to know where his limits and boundaries are, right? We never did ABA, for an example, because it just didn't seem like something that would be beneficial, and we were inadvertently doing it at home anyway. And I hear that a lot in the autism community around people choosing the wrong therapy or the wrong support tool or whatever you want to call it. And they don't make the decision with the child, which, by the way, should be happening.
Yeah.
They make it for the kid. And then when the kid acts out and either has a meltdown or has a reaction or isn't engaging with it, they're like, oh, it's the kid's fault. I'm like, is it though? Because you kind of came in, you didn't actually get to know the kid. You saw the diagnosis, you saw some of the behaviors out of context, and you made an assumption. And then you decided you needed to spend 20 minutes getting them to touch their nose for you. Like, really? Like, Thomas was then diagnosed at 10 with ADHD and dyslexia. So we made a decision for his learning to move him into what's called a self-contained classroom in a different school. And I think I've shared this story before, but it just epitomizes the whole for not with situation. I'm on the phone with the superintendent of special education. So Sydney, what does that title, I'm going to continue my story, but I would love your perception. If somebody tells you they're the superintendent of special education, what does that imply to you? No wrong answer.
The first thing that came to my mind is that they have a savior complex.
Okay, that could 100% could be true. Love that. Should they know their shit?
They should know their shit and also be open to continuously know their shit. But a lot of times that's not the case.
Oh, it was not. I happened to be working for Girl Guides at the time. Luckily, when I am getting worked up, I need to walk and talk, because if I just sit there, I'm going to have an aneurysm burst out of my head. And so I ended up walking.
That's what happened to my mom's mom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When she was 7 years old. When my mom was 7. That's why I go by Elaine.
I don't know what to do with that right now. I'm sorry. I wasn't making light. My mom also had an aneurysm, but it was an abdominal aortic. Okay, that was a little... All right, so I'm upstairs walking around, and I'm on the phone with this woman. Mm-hmm. And again, not a joiner, but I have done my research on what matters to me, which is my kid. Mm-hmm. So anything that I have found, relates to what is good for my son. And he's in Cubs at this point. We're in a family skate group. Like I've said all of this before, like we're taking care of the social, right? And we go out to movies a lot, and I'm exposing him to sensory issues at his comfort level, pushing him a little bit. We've got routine. Like I got it on lock. What I can't do is teach him, because I'm not a patient person. He acts like a little wiener head, and like I don't want to have that crap going on. I've tried. He starts to giggle, and he starts to fidget, and he starts to do all of these things, and it's fine. It's what he needs to do. But again, we'll go back to not a patient person, and I pay taxes. You should be teaching my kid. So talking to her, and I'm like, so what do I got to do to move this forward to get him into self-contained, right? Like we need to be aware that his grades are not reflective of his ability, and self-contained. And she stops, and she's lucky we weren't in a room together. And, well, Mrs. Plouffe, you must know that going into grades 7 and 8 is the key time for social relationship development, and removing somebody from their peer group to focus on, education and whatever could be detrimental to future relationships. I had a moment, and I had to collect myself. When I get very angry, I've gotten much better at recognizing when that's coming. And so what I will do is stop speaking for a second and look at the ground. Because if I continue to look at whatever's causing me to be angry, I'm going to say some things that they are going to regret. I won't regret it, but they won't be happy. So even though we're on the phone, I pause and I look at the ground, and I'm like, Elizabeth, you can't eviscerate this woman. Like, try and be nice. I can hear my mother in my head at the time going, Elizabeth, you shouldn't talk like that. So I said, okay. I said, just curious. I said, your title is Superintendent of Special Education, correct? And she said, yes. I said, okay. Do you know anything about autism at all? Like, you got one fun fact you can spit out for me right now? I'm like, because if you truly understood, you would know that the social component is the least of our worries and causes the most issue. He would do better socially in a smaller class of 14 students with support in the room and whatever. I don't care about the social aspect because I'm already taking care of that. He's in scouting. We go and do family skates. We have friends. Like, he's good. What he can't do is learn in an environment where there's constant social distraction and stimulus coming in, and he comes home exhausted, borderline on a meltdown, because he's dealing with teachers talking at him and students noise everywhere and the noise of the school and all that kind of stuff. I said, so put him in the fucking self-contained. Like, whatever we got to do for that, do that. She says, well, actually, I'm a trained autism, whatever. I'm like, you need to go and get recertified. Like, you need to educate yourself, because you're hanging on to stuff that doesn't apply anymore. And you're slapping that on my kid. You're not looking at my son. You're looking at his label. And you need to grow in your awareness that that label does not come with a complete set of boundaries. That's individualistic. And never should you ever, if anybody is brave enough to share with you that they're on the spectrum or they have some other neurodifference, never should you ever voice your limitations. And I know it's unconscious, and I know, like, For the love of all that is holy, park it and look at the person.
Mm-hmm.
Your lens shouldn't shift because somebody has been brave enough to tell you why they're potentially going silent, why they're potentially needing to talk to you through text. Honor their process. And if you don't understand what's happening in the moment, it's not that person's responsibility in that moment to educate you. It is your responsibility to pause, meet them where they are, and figure it out after.
Mm-hmm.
And to Sydney's point, if what you learned about autism is from 1997, there's this newfangled thing called Googles, and you can start with Googles. Like if you were to recommend some spots that people could go and learn about autism and upgrade their skills, YouTubes. There's also the use of the tubes. Go to the YouTubes. There's great stuff on YouTubes. Do you have resources that you would try and recommend to folks? Which we didn't do this ahead of time, folks, so I'm putting Sydney on the spot.
Like I have some, but I'm blanking now on like the specific, like, you know,
That's
like
okay.
I know the autism.
We're gonna use the Google.
Yeah, let's use the Googles. Autism.
We're gonna use the Googles. So there's the Autism Alliance of Canada, and that ties into Sydney and I and Maddie are going to the Autism Alliance of Canada Leadership Summit in a week, just over a week.
Yeah, something like that. I'm just like, time's flying.
Time's flying. And we had a great conversation, so we're picking our snackies. But Sydney has shared there's some stuff on a long road trip that we need to be aware of. I'm like, all right, cool. How do we figure that out? What does that look like? We're driving in a cool car. We're going to have our tiaras. We're going to be ready for any Olaf situations going on. Like, yay. So there's autismcanada.org. There is Autism Ontario, obviously. Carrie's Place. I'm looking here. There's Holland Bloorview, but that focuses mainly on kids. One of the challenges I find is that there's not a lot of dedicated resources for adults.
Yes.
Because, by the way, particularly for women, they are, I love this term, a late bloomer in recognizing that some of the struggles that they've had have not been because it's an Elizabeth thing. It's because it's an autism thing. And we haven't caught up yet. We're really hyper-focused resource-wise on kids, which is I'm not saying don't do that. Like, please keep doing that because we need that. I think we're a little behind the times in how to support and grow that awareness of what autism might look like in adults.
I agree. And I think it's been interesting working in this field, and because I also work with kids, teens, and adults with disabilities and autistic adults, and seeing there's so much lack of resources or it's even I feel like even for teenagers, it's like even that's not a lot of information because your teenagers really hard enough, and navigating being autistic, like being a teenager and being autistic was very, very hard.
It was for my son too.
I don't think that's even talked about enough, frankly, right? And that transition, then I think the transition from being a child to being a teenager to being an adult in general is hard, right? Yeah. But then being neurodivergent to being autistic, that's just another layer. And people, again, it's a autism spectrum disorder. Like, it's so vast.
It's in the name, people.
And yet people so choose to ignore that.
It's in the name.
I think I saw this diagram. I don't know if you've probably seen it, Elizabeth, but it's like people think of spectrum like a linear line, but in this spectrum it's more like a circle diagram and different quadrants of different things and how like different aspects. And so I thought that was really cool when it came to looking at the spectrum and how it could potentially impact people in different ways. And so I think that I think people, again, I think it's the perceptions, and people don't understand that, or like some days are harder than others when it comes to sensory input from myself personally,
For sure.
and sometimes it's just like everything is awful, everything is too much today, and other days it's like okay, and so I think
Just have an idea, so I'm just writing it down. Sorry.
that's, I think, what the challenge is. It's like, what do you mean I could do this thing yesterday? Or like I could tolerate that sensory input yesterday, but today, no bueno, no good,
I have that with clothes a lot. So
Me
ADHD
too.
folks also have sensory issues, some
Mhm.
sensory issues. I also grew up with what's called hyperacuity. So I
Mhm.
used to have, before my incident, I used to have extremely good hearing. And the challenge is I could hear things that other people couldn't,
Mhm.
at levels that other people couldn't. So they'd be like, well, why is that bothering you? If I were in an office, for an example, so if we apply this awareness to the workplace, I cannot stand fluorescent lights, those long tubes.
You're the devil. What? Who said that?
Honestly, like whoever invented those needs to be tarred and feathered. So for those of you not aware, for me in particular, the fluorescent lights have a flicker. It doesn't, most folks don't notice it. I do. It gives me migraines. And then on top of that, especially if the bulb isn't put in properly, it has like a low key hum situation going on. And I'm like, so any office I have moved into where I've been able to, I have had those lights removed and I have paid to have LED bulbs put in because I can't work in an office, or I keep the lights, as was in my last office, I keep the lights off and I buy lamps. And it's all lamp lit. I can work in relatively darkish spaces. Have to be careful around that as well. But and also sensitive to the rest of the team. So I left one bank of lights on so that Jason could have overhead if he needed it. But he was always amazing. If I walked in, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, you can turn it off."
Well, I remember when you like, do you need any accommodations? And then I mentioned the lights that you're like, no problem. I have the same issue. And it's just like,
It's curiosity, right? Like, I wonder why there isn't enough awareness around. Sorry, I'm looking up because I'm thinking at the same time. And if you're just listening, well, then you don't know. But if you're watching, I'm having a moment. So why isn't there enough awareness around accommodations? We have huge conversations around ergonomic accommodations. So for those of you not in the know, most desks have been built to accommodate a 5'10" person. Height is genderless. So we're going to say it was a man that designed it, but you never know. And then most chairs in offices are built to accommodate that same 5'10" person. I clock in at 5'3" on a good day. And heels don't matter because my body proportions are still 5'3". So
stout and strong.
Oh, stop it.
I had.
I'm going to get that on a t-shirt.
Oh.
So we had an event on Tuesday. We've been very fortunate for the last 2 years to deliver 2.5 Employment Works, which is a program out of Calgary through the City Family Foundation. And we've had over 50 people come through the program, a lot move into employment, like great. And so we had an event on Tuesday, just to thank people for being in the program and whatever. And one of our members, bless. So we were chit-chatting. So I'm 5'3". I'm also short for my weight. So I'm on the fluffy side. I am. Anyway. And I joked about, I have like 1.9% Neanderthal detectable on my ancestry doodad thing. And one of our members looks at me and says, "Oh, so you're stout and strong." I have a freaking teapot. Like, what are we? Just looked at them. I was like, "So, friend, traditionally speaking, most women don't like to be referred to as stout. Strong is great. Stout's not a winner. Just, from a going forward dating perspective, I would not include that in your lexicon of words to use to describe how somebody looks. If they say I look big in these jeans, I didn't say that to them. You don't say you look stout. It's not positive. Yeah. And then I proceeded to work that into the conversation for the next. I should have done the teapot.
You should
have thought about it.
Hindsight.
So funny moment there. Okay. So.
Well, you're seeing this person tonight, so you could do it.
Oh my God, I am. Oh, I'm in. Oh, thank you. Oh, my brain is going like, do I bring a teapot with me? Like, this could be a whole thing. Okay. I've totally forgotten the track of where we were at, but that's okay. So going back
I think we're going to Google the resources.
I have done the Googles. Mm-hmm. So on the Googles, I put in resources on autism in adults. You could say, if you're doing identity first, resources for autistic adults. It's, it's a thing. You're going to get the same results. So I'm going to share the ones that I know, only because I don't want to send you someplace that I don't know, and it could be scarring. So like there is Autism Ontario, who's doing better work around moving into adults. For the longest time, it was like, you're only autistic until you're 18. And then all of a sudden you're magically not. Which I have to tell you, my son turned 28 yesterday. Still specking.
Turning 29 next month.
You young pup. Okay. Are you a Gemini?
No, I'm a Taurus. It's funny. My best friend was supposed to be a Taurus, and I was supposed to be a Gemini, and then we switched.
The two switched.
Well, my mom had a baby shower, and I was like, "You're celebrating me. I'm coming." So
dare you have a party without me,
mother? It's a party for me. I'm coming. Yeah. So that's what happened.
It's a British thing to have the baby shower after the baby's born, which I personally prefer. I don't understand, because then you get a whole bunch of like gender neutral stuff, or even nowadays with the son, I don't trust those things, right? Like I don't trust them. There's too many babies that it's a girl and comes out sporting some equipment that's not genetically girl related. So yeah, we do them after, and then everything is like for the baby and the actual baby in the room, not the one that's still cooking. So segue. Autism Canada, there is some research and support there. Like I said, Carrie's Place, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, so KMH, has some adult neurodevelopmental services. I don't know a lot about them. I know Maddie would.
Yeah, I was like, Maddie would know more.
Yeah, I cannot. The Autism Alliance of Canada doesn't provide resources in the traditional sense, but they did just complete an autistic adult needs assessment, which is quite intriguing. And we're going to be pulling that out to have some chitty chat. And then let's see what's next. What's next on the wheel, Vanna? There's the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. I don't know a lot about them, but we'll do some research and find out. Do some Googles. Just the main thing is, if somebody is brave enough to bring to your awareness that they happen to be on the spectrum, please don't respond with, "Oh, my brother's sister's wife's uncle's son is also autistic, so I know all about it."
And you're nothing like him.
Oh,
yeah, because I'm a 29-year-old non-binary person, and they're a 5-year-old autistic boy. We're not the same.
Not the same. And like you will never have I ever. There are traits. So let's be fair. There are traits that carry over from person to person.
But the life experience, he's at the beginning. Like, I'm still young, but like just in the beginning of his journey, like, hush.
I'm not 30, by the way.
Just a reminder, I have 1 more year left until I get there. Anyway, but it just...
I'm talking to you.
the
I have
different
4 years until I'm
perspectives.
60.
My
Sorry?
dad's turning 60 this month. Anyway, we're all over the place. But no,
That's
I think
about it.
I think what you were just talking about is a good way to wrap up. It's just like everyone, there's similar traits and there's traits that are passed.
Yeah.
But
It's influenced by home
to
life. It's influenced by
But it's
education. It's
influenced by
influenced
so
by
many different factors.
Yeah.
It's influenced, like, you said how you put your son in Cubs. I was in Girl Guides. I wouldn't be the same person if I wasn't Girl Guides. Like, that got me out of my shell. Like,
100%.
when my dad put me in Girl Guides, he's like, had a speech impediment. I couldn't say my R's properly. I would speak too fast. Sometimes I still do. It's my stutter. But these different life experiences help shape me who I am and make me more comfortable and confident in my abilities. And I know I have struggles and I have challenges. And so I think having that awareness piece and then also accepting the individual where they're at and where that they share that with you and really getting to know the person beyond the diagnosis is crucial.
Yeah, and that was one conversation that I had quite frequently with teachers was, if you don't get my son, that's okay. No harm, no foul. We're good. But I really need you to get out of the way for somebody who does. And I really need you to take whatever stuff you got going on and not put it on my kid. And that is the same for service providers. That is the same for physicians. That is the same for therapists. That is the same for whatever. Yes, as a therapist, and that could be a mental health specialist, that could be a physiotherapist. My son had to do occupational therapy because he had some fine motor crap going on. I'll back up for a quick second. I lost my mom in 2019. I didn't misplace her. She died. I did lose her in the post a couple of months later, but that's another story. So she was in the ICU for a short period of time while she was ill. And it was really interesting because I went in and I always felt this compulsion to share about my mom because she was getting dehumanized. And all they were seeing was her sickness and her surgery and all that kind of stuff. And underneath, if you've never stepped foot into an ICU, it is jarring. And when you see somebody that you love very intensely hooked up to more machines than is natural, it's a moment. And I felt like she was getting buried under all of the technology that was helping her to recover and survive. And so I would talk to the nurses and I would say, so by the way, did you know she's a 35-year volunteer with Halton Healthcare and all these other things? And the nurse looked at me one day and she said, keep doing that. And I'm like, you're going to have to be more specific. Like, what am I doing? She said, keep telling us about your mom. Because as a professional, we lose perspective. Our focus is on all the things keeping your mom alive right now and helping her recover. We lose focus of the human underneath all of that. So keep doing that. And so for 3.5 months, while my mom was in hospital, every new person that came in, hi, this is Mary. She's awake, by the way, and like fully sassy and whatever. Not one great at talking about herself. When it comes down to awareness, either about you as an individual who might be autistic, you as a parent who is in the short term acting as the voice for your kid, you need to show people that there's a human behind the label. And you need to give your kid the tools when they're little to share that about themselves. Talk about their traits. And what I mean by that is you are kind, you are smart, you are funny, you like Lego. Like, talk about all of those things so that they can then use those tools to share about themselves and put that face on their diagnosis. And when you do that, when you take the time not just to be the voice, but to help your kid find their voice, you end up with people like Sydney. And you end up with people like Maddie, and you end up with people like my son, and you end up with people like Paul's kids and all of that, who are able to bring awareness to others, who are able to share about themselves, who are able to set boundaries on what they will and won't accept in behavior, who are able to advocate. Like, I was so impressed. Sydney came in to help me help be part of the team for Employment Works, and you were having a day, and you advocated and said, here's where I'm at today. If I suddenly have to leave the room and whatever, this is what's going on. And I was like, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But if your mom hadn't helped you develop those tools, or your parents, right? It makes a difference. And awareness isn't just about the diagnosis. That's the chief thing. Saying it out loud now, that's what bugs me about this month.
Yeah.
It's not about the diagnosis. It's about the people and the success stories and the creative folk that we get to meet and the way individuals show up. So yes, April is Autism Awareness Month. Yes, today is an amazing day for that. But stop looking at the diagnosis and look at the people behind it. Actually, look at the people in front of it, because the diagnosis is handy, but it's not everything.
Yeah, I echo the statements you just said. And I think, it's like really focus on the people. And also, it's not just this month,
Yeah, there's 11 other months that, like, people are not autistic just for April. Just by the way. My little weirdo is, ASD like 24/7. Okay, but he's so funny. I will wrap up with this. One thing my son says to me. I'm an odd duck. I'm good with that. And I took great umbrage at people turning weird into a bad word. Like George Carlin says, no word is bad until you make it bad. So in our house, weird was a compliment. And what my son will do something, he's periodically a bonehead. He's at work right now, so I can say that. He'll be like, well, Mom, you told us that being weird was okay, so it's kind of your fault. I'm like, valid. And I'll just look at him and go, valid. You are 100% right. So thanks for joining us today, folks. We had to pivot a little bit because it's just the witches on today. The other pirates will be back next time, hopefully next week. I think next week we're set.
I believe so.
I think everybody's back on their home turf, and Maddie will have successfully taken over the conference, and Paul will be back to his full self, and we'll have the whole gang again. But this was lovely.
It was nice just chatting with you. It's always a pleasure.
It's the girls. And then we get 6 hours in a car, and we're going to be doing show tunes and Disney and snacks and tiaras. I'm very excited.
Me too.
Paul's a great driving buddy, but he will not wear a tiara, which I think is rude.
We can also talk about some witchy things that.
Oh, sorry? So excited. Okay, so thanks for joining us, folks.
On that note. Thanks.
On that note, it's April 2nd. It's Autism Awareness Day, and we're talking about the fact that awareness isn't just about the diagnosis. It is about intersectionality. It is about the humans. It is so much more, and it should be a continuous, much like it's a spectrum, so should your learning.
Yes. And
if you have some gaps, you need to fill that shit up. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
There you go. Hey, this is Elizabeth Blue from Spiro, Canada, one of your pirates on the Riff Raff podcast team. My fellow pirates include Maddie Dever from Autistic Bridge, Sydney Elaine Butler from Accessible Creates, and Paul Coleman from Creation Designs, who is our very own Arctic LARPing Santa. Thank you for joining us on the Neurospicy Seas, and we wish fair winds to you all.